Thank you, Speaker. I rise on behalf of the Greens and particularly on behalf of my colleague, the member for Ballina, Tamara Smith, who is unable to be here in the chamber today. She actually was unwell and is awaiting a PCR test, which I'm glad to say is all clear. But I understand that those in regional areas might have to wait a little longer for their results than others. So she unfortunately couldn't be here today. And I know that Tamara will be definitely putting the views of her community and the response on the record later this week when she is in the chamber. I want to thank the member for Coffs Harbour on behalf of the Greens and the member for Ballina on bringing this motion, and join with the member for Lakemba and all of us here recognising that we acknowledge all of the local MPs and the work that them, and particularly I'm sure their staff, who were not only impacted by the extreme weather events that we saw, but also the fact that they were at the same time trying to support their communities. In addition to that, I want to really recognise that this is still very raw, that the crisis and the trauma that people are feeling, the realities of what they're facing are happening right now still to this day, and will take a long time to be able to repair and recover from, and there are massive challenges that lie ahead. I also want to recognise that we've heard and we've seen in terms of on the ground work that Tamara and others have been doing, that there are many gaps and holes in services, and I recognise that that is partly because of the scale of the disaster that we have seen is nothing like we have seen before. But we also need to recognise that in a crisis, whether it be the most recent pandemic that we saw or this current flooding or the bushfires, of the past, that when we are in a crisis point, the existing inequalities and the existing problems in our communities and societies, whether that be about economic inequality, whether that be about housing insecurity and unaffordability, whether that be about existing issues to not having access to income or other supports and services or challenges with language or other things, can have an impact on how the crisis impacts on individuals. And so I think we need to recognise that absolutely everyone has gone above and beyond, but some of the existing inequalities that are there are escalated whenever we see a crisis, because, as is often said, we experience the same circumstance, but the infrastructure, the things we have around us, the support networks we have around us are not equal for everybody. I want to recognise the fact that the recent floods in the Northern Rivers rendered several thousand homes unlivable and turning the already existing housing crisis into the housing emergency that it is. I've been working closely with the member for Ballina, Tamara Smith, on looking at what is an escalating housing crisis in the region that no one will deny was a problem before these floods hit, and now realises it is of epic proportions. The community is traumatised and overwhelmed by what has happened, but in addition to that, families, mothers, elderly people are being forced into overcrowded housing with friends and relatives, parking caravans on front lawns or living in makeshift shelters, including tents, or beside properties that have been condemned. The member for Ballina is immediately calling for the relief of flood victims in the Byron Shire to flow from the Liberal government in national government in New South Wales to honour their election commitment around capping short-term holiday letting at 90 days as one of the simple solutions. And I know that there are many other plans that we could do, and I just today introduced a bill into this place, which I'll second read this week, which will cap rents for 12 months in the flood-affected areas so that people don't profit from this crisis, but also, in addition to that, stop any evictions from occurring in the flood-affected areas, because we know that that can be a risk where people kick people out and then they redo the house up and they charge an astronomical amount of rent, and we see further escalations of rental increases, and I hope members will look at that in a way as possible solution. I want to say that while I absolutely recognise that nothing that I have seen on images or on TV or hearing the stories compares in any way to the members who have contributed to this debate, I did experience from afar the fact that I received a text message from one of my sisters who lives in Cabarita Beach at 6:56 on the morning where the floods hit that area. At 6:56, it was a somewhat light-hearted message as we saw that the pool, she said the pool seems to have encroached into the house. We'd spent the summer up there and swum in the pool. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, after much stress and worry, her partner Jake and their dog were very lucky enough to have been evacuated just on a tinny. Now, the fact that things escalated that quickly, to me, gave me a taste of what must have been the trauma and the heartache and the pain suffered by so many in those communities. I can give you my absolute commitment, the Greens' commitment and the member for Ballina's commitment, that we will do all we can to make sure that adaptation and disaster response is serving the needs of the community.